Welcome back. Today we're diving into an explainer on Module 4. We're going to completely unpack the strict regulatory map that ensures every single medicine crossing our borders is safe, equivalent, and fully compliant. We've got a great roadmap ahead of us. We'll be covering the meaning of importation, overseeing third country sites, import testing and MRA rules, navigating UK import routes, and finally, wrapping up with security and data integrity. Let's get right into it.
All right, Section 1, the meaning of importation, grasping Annex 21, and the importer's role.
So what are we actually talking about here? We are focused entirely on physical importation. We're not talking about fiscal or customs tax concerns today. It is the physical entry of a product from a third country into a block that triggers those strict GMP duties. You see, the exact moment that product crosses the border, an entire framework of controls snaps right into place to guarantee patient safety. Because of this, under Annex 21, the importer is definitely not just some logistical middleman moving boxes from point A to point B. They are the ultimate guarantor of safety. To legally import, you absolutely must hold a Manufacturing and Import Authorization, or MIA. You're taking on manufacturer-level responsibilities, overseeing that distant third country site, and, this is crucial, holding the full batch documentation and samples right at the import site. You can't just cross your fingers and rely on a foreign certificate of analysis. You need the complete picture yourself. Moving right along to Section 2, overseeing third country sites and assuring equivalent GMP standards. I really want to emphasize Rule 5 here. You literally cannot just assume a third country site meets EU equivalent standards just because they haven't failed a local inspection. A negative check is not proof. You have to actively gather evidence that their GMP is genuinely equivalent to your home standards. It's simply not enough that a site merely meets its own local requirements. Well, unless those requirements deliver true equivalence. So, if you don't have a mutual recognition agreement, an MRA or a current valid inspection from a trusted authority in your back pocket, well, the burden falls entirely on you. Your own rigorous ICHQ-9 risk-based audit is going to carry the load to prove equivalence, and this audit has to be done by competent, independent auditors producing documented findings and follow-ups. Oh, and the frequency of these audits, it needs to reflect actual risk, like product criticality and site history, not just habit. Okay, on to Section 3, import testing and MRA rules. Essentially, proving safety at the border. Here's the deal. Physical import testing in the destination block, that is the default regulatory expectation. It's not an optional add-on. You test on import unless you are specifically exempt, period. This testing confirms the identity of the active substance, key quality attributes, and compliance with the marketing authorization. And keep in mind, sampling for this testing ideally happens at or after import to make sure the sample truly represents the product as you received it. Now, you can only skip that default testing if you can pass all these specific checks, because MRA reliance is strictly scoped by country and products type under Rule 4B. It's never just a blanket exemption. You've got to ask yourself, is the MRA actually in force? Is my specific product category listed in the scope? Is the documentation totally complete? If you hit a no on literally any of these gates, the exemption drops completely and you're right back to full import testing in the destination block. Now for Section 4, we're navigating UK import routes, specifically looking at Great Britain versus Northern Ireland. Post-Brexit, you really have to know your jurisdiction at all times. Great Britain uses its own specific import routes now, whereas Northern Ireland remains firmly aligned with EU rules under the Windsor framework. If you're importing into Northern Ireland, you are essentially still following EU Annex 21 and Annex 16 concepts. But if you're importing into Great Britain, you've got to navigate two very distinct post-Brexit routes, and it all depends on exactly where the product is coming from. Let's look at the RPI role in Great Britain. What's fascinating here is that the RPI is confirming existing certification from the EEA rather than recertifying the batch from scratch. If a product originates from an EEA-approved country for import, it's going through this route. The responsible person for import basically sits on a wholesale dealer authorization to verify that an EEA-qualified person has already certified the batch. When you compare the two Great Britain routes side by side, it's black and white. A UK MIA requires a UK resident QP, while the RP route will mandate UK-only labeling starting January 1, 2025. If your product is coming from a non-EEA MRA partner, you have to use the UK MIA route, which means full certification by a UK resident QP. An EU-only QP cannot certify on a UK MIA. And that brings us to our final section, Section 5, Security and Data Integrity, Protecting the Supply Chain. think about the sheer distance these products travel. Every single handover in this timeline has to be thoroughly documented to guard against diversion, all while ensuring storage conditions are perfectly maintained across massive geographical journeys. Imported products often travel thousands of miles. A QP needs to know for sure that temperature and humidity were maintained end to end and that any transit excursions were properly assessed against stability data before they ever think about certifying the batch. Also, safety features are completely jurisdiction-specific these days. If you need to repackage an imported product just to comply, make no mistake, that is a full manufacturing operation requiring QP oversight. You can't just treat repackaging as mere logistics. Anti-tamper devices and unique identifiers are your absolute frontline defense against falsified medicines. And you must follow the specific decommissioning rules of the bloc you're importing into, mainly because the EU and Great Britain have significantly diverged here. And of course, distance makes data integrity incredibly tricky. This means you have to strictly demand Alcoa Plus compliance and never, ever gloss over ambiguous terms in unchecked translations. When batch records arrive from a third country in a totally different language, you have to use controlled, quality-assured translations. The QP needs independent verification, often having to look directly into audit trails where systems allow it, because missing data or some unresolved out-of-specification result is going to completely block certification. So, here's a massive compliance question that comes up when supply chain managers are under intense pressure. Imagine a critical, life-saving drug is in a severe shortage and the import testing just isn't finished yet. Can the QP just waive the testing and release the batch to patients?
The answer, spelled out in Rule 3, is a hard no. You must engage the competent authority for exceptional routes during a shortage. A QP simply cannot unilaterally waive binding legal requirements. Shortage pressure does not override the law, and it certainly doesn't override the marketing authorization. You escalate to the regulator, you never lower your import assurance standards on your own. Shortages never justify shortcuts.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. Ask yourself, does your oversight truly bridge the physical distance to ensure every imported medicine is just as safe as one made right next door? Whether you're navigating Annex 21, interpreting an MRA scope, or managing post-Brexit UK routes, it really all comes down to robust, verifiable evidence. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into importation, and keep building those compliant supply chains.